Thank you all for coming out. I know it's a little wet. It's an unexpected rain. We live in Miami. We do have all the 3 campuses here, so as I go through the reports, just keep in mind I will try my best to say which parts you will see on your report if your child is in elementary, middle, or high school. But there will be some instances that I might forget, so just bear with me with that. The first thing that I want to answer, because I have gotten quite a few questions in regards to ITBS versus ACT Aspire. We're comparing. We can't compare. It's apples and oranges. It's a completely different test, and the way the students are evaluated is also completely different. When you're looking at an ITBS score, that is an assessment that is normed. So in 2010, a group of students took the ITBS, and they used that as a baseline for every year thereafter. So that test has not been renormed since 2010. Now we have our ACT Aspire. ACT looks and measures at the students at every single grade level. So if your child is in 3rd grade, or took it last year in 3rd grade, he or she is compared to all the students who took that test in 3rd grade that year. They move on to 4th grade this year. They will be compared to all the students in 4th grade who take it this year. It's not normed. So it gives us an accurate picture of where our students lie in comparison to everyone else in the nation that's taking this test. So just to get that out of the way. Because one of the things is, you look at percentile, you can't compare. So you received in the mail 2 different reports which kind of share the same information. The first report is a summary report. It doesn't have the pictures, it doesn't have the graphs, it doesn't have the extra information, but it does portray the same information. When you look at the top section, you will see that you have the subject areas that your students were assessed in. You have the ACT Readiness Level. Now what does that mean? The ACT that the students take in 11th grade, there are a specific set of standards that you want your child to be progressing towards to make sure that when they take that test in 11th grade, they're proficient. They score well enough score that any college will go ahead and accept them. Now when you're looking at the ACT Readiness Level, it'll tell you they're in need of support. That one is one of the lowest levels that ACT reports. They're close, so they're getting to that point of being ready. You have your ready level, which they're okay. Now our overachieving parents want to make sure that all of the students are in the exceeding range. It is not a requirement to be in the exceeding range. If they're in the exceeding range, that's perfect, that's fine. Let's try to maintain them in that exceeding range. However, if a child is in the ready range, they are exactly where they're supposed to be at this point in time for their particular grade level. You have your score. The bold number is the score that your child got the day of the test. The range at the bottom is the score that your child will receive if they do not learn anything else ever again and take this test again this year. So it's not the range in which they fall, it's the range of where they would place if they were to take it again and not learn anything this year. We know that's not going to happen. Now, here's the trick. Do not connect all of these together, because you will drive yourself nuts. They do not correlate. So, and it doesn't correlate because you see that this child is exceeding, and here it says 64th percentile. Perfect example. This 64th percentile tells us that this particular student scored equal to, or other students scored below that same exact score. So 64% of the students that took this exam last year in 3rd grade scored exactly 418 or below. Now 418 is in the exceeding range. So this child is performing well above other students in his particular grade level. However, it just so happened that 64% also did as well. Is that clear? Do not make them synonymous. I know it's hard because we want to make them equal and we can't. So I, as a parent, if I am telling you what is the best column to look at as a parent, my recommendation is your readiness level. So as you're looking at your report and you see that your student is in need of support in a particular area, that would raise a little flag. And then that's where your next report comes into play. Next. All right, so let's look at this. Go ahead and zoom up here, please. This child was exceeding in English. We're now looking at a 10th grader, if I'm not mistaken. And as you're looking at this report, no, go ahead. As you're looking at this report, let's say this area was the one that the child was in need of support of. Regardless, they still give you the same information. You're looking at this far column, improvement ideas. They range these skills, these are the broken down skills that they assess on the test. It will tell you what you can do as a parent, or what your child can do if they're in high school, they're independent, they can take this information and run with it, and help them improve in this particular section. Now, it doesn't mean to shy away from everything else, because if your child was in need of support or close, they might have a series that are equivalent at 50% or 75%. So they just pick the one that had the higher complexity questions and they miss the most of if they're all equal, and they will provide you with improvement ideas. So as you read through the report, just go ahead and glance at those improvement ideas and see, this does seem like my child's, or no, this is way off from what I'm used to seeing. As you move over to the other side, this is I would say my favorite part of the whole report. It's visual, and I'm a visual learner. So as I'm looking at this report, I will notice that I want my child to be above this solid green line, because that indicates that he or she is ready or exceeding. Now we as parents want to see the orange above the gray. The N in the gray circle is the national average. So this particular student scored a 442. The national average was 430. Now those of you that have students in high school, your report also shows this solid black dot. This is where they tested last year. So now we have multiple years of comparison data. The students in elementary and middle school, you'll have that secondary dot when we take the test this school year. So this child scored slightly above the ready, right into the exceeding last year, and soared and went up to a 442. So you guys in elementary, middle school, you will not see that. The other score that you will not see in elementary or middle school, or even in 9th, you'll see it in 10th, is a predicted ACT score for each respective subject area. So as you're looking through, if you have your high schooler, it will give you a prediction of where your child will fall if they were to take the ACT at this moment in time. If you pan up, Omar, to the top corner, over, nope, all the way up, and over. The other report. The other report.
Go to the other report.
The other report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
You change pages.
No. There. Not to the top.
Up, nope.
Oh,
It's okay, we'll get it. Up here. Go slow.
I don't see the dot.
Right here. I need this box that's up here. Where, there you go. Oh. All Alright, so we have this composite score. This composite score you will see if your child is in 8th grade or higher. This predicted composite score has taken all those individual predictions for each of the subject areas and has created a composite score. So if your child were to take the SAT right now, this particular student, out of a maximum of 36 points, which is the highest you can achieve on an SAT test, this child is predicted to score a 20 to a 23. Now, this is a 10th grader. He hasn't learned all the content necessary to take that test. He's still in the process of learning all the math, the trig, and whatnot that goes into the ACT, actual ACT. I've had a couple parents ask me, well, what does this score mean? Don't go crazy about this score if your child is not in high school. There is a comparison chart on the website for ACT Aspire, but the equivalence of the two is very large. There's a huge discrepancy between the numbers because they haven't mastered all their skills yet. So I recommend not to look at that and just kind of look at each individual subject area individually. Go ahead and scroll, make it normal size. Now, as you're looking at the bottom, you'll have your descriptions if you forget what some of this information is. At the bottom, it goes ahead and it reminds you. Thank you, Ducky. You can go ahead and go to the next page. Again, you notice you have a lot more skills that are being assessed when it comes to math. And it'll give you the breakdown. And this is a perfect example of where a student received the same score and then they identified a certain area, justification and explanation as the area that they need to improve on. Now, as a parent reading this report as well as being a teacher, my main concern is I need to get this child to move up. I need him to improve. But again, when he took it last year, I can see that he was lower and he's moving in the right direction. We just need to make sure that as he progresses, he crosses that green line and becomes ready so that when he takes the ACT, he scores well. Go ahead and go to the next page. So again, going back to what we mentioned about the percentile ranking, they rank them in your child's order of strength to weakness at the top. So this particular child scored 96 percentile writing, English, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the things that you might have, and not necessarily everyone does, they get confused when they're looking at these two sections. You have your English language arts, and then you have your progress with text complexity. This particular student says that he or she is ready when it comes to their English and language arts score. He's within the range. However, when you look to this side, it states that he is not, doesn't demonstrate sufficient progress when it comes to text complexity. Well, what is text complexity? When the students take the ACT Aspire, they're presented with multiple modes of questioning. You have your lower level complexity questions, which are the easy ones that you go back into the text and it's an immediate recall. Then you have your moderate complexity questions where it requires a little bit more of their thinking. Then you have your higher order complexity questions. That's where the student is responsible for reading the information, taking the information in as a basic recall, and applying it at another level. So now the child is required to analyze and process and apply. And in this particular test, they have to provide their responses in multiple choice and short responses. It is not an all multiple choice test. So one of the questions was, why does it take so long to get the scores back? That's why. There are, in every single section, there are written responses that the students have to write in, and the score, they have to have 2 scores so that it's a valid and reliable scoring, and then they send that information back to us. So that's why it does take a little bit longer than ITBS did. It's not just a straight scan. So when this is showing as a no, that leads me to believe that the student is struggling with applying the information that he or she is extracting from the passages, the math problems, the science questions, etc. Now we have our STEM readiness, and this is an indicator of how your students, when they take the science and the math, they combine it and kind of do an average and determine whether or not this child is developing strongly in the science and math skills. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not proficient, it doesn't mean that they're not headed in the right direction. It's this moment in time that they took a snapshot. And if we recall, the student did pretty well in science, but didn't do so well in the math. So therefore, this readiness score kind of shifts away from that little green readiness range. The high school, start at 8th grade, will see the progress towards career readiness. So they have the NCRC, which is the National Career Readiness Certificate, that shows bronze, silver, and gold. And they kind of rank it. It's different professions that are looking at this information to see, is this child interested in the field of engineering or mathematics? And then they set a standard of where they should be if that's the career path that they're choosing, and where they fall as far as readiness is concerned. And I think that was it for this page. Go ahead. There's more information about understanding and looking at other tables and charts and scale scores and whatnot on the ACT Aspire page. So if you go to discoveractaspire.org, you'll have more information on that. And now I'm going to go ahead and take questions.